Some of you have been commenting on my videos about the question, is this an e-reader or is it a note-taking device? And as an e-reader, you should probably take something smaller like a Kindle and not such a huge e-ink device. And color is unnecessary for an e-book reader. Now, I disagree, but I found that I may have missed something. And this is actually, I have a very personal view on reading books. Now, in my library, which is still 90% non-electronic, yeah, so I have a lot of physical books around me, the majority are non-fiction books. I am a scientist. I come from a scientific background, and there is a lot of textbooks, research papers, and so on. But also books about history, psychology, about different countries, travel guides. Those sorts of books which contain a large amount of visual elements. And something I wanted to add as well. In the last couple of years, you will have seen, actually in the last decade maybe, a significant shift from text-based books only in the direction of heavily visually generated, comprehensive presentation strategies, mixing text and visual elements, but the visual elements become more and more important. And I think the reason for that is that psychology showed that the vast majority of people have an easier comprehension when you present information in a visual way. So you find on YouTube, if you are looking visual note-taking strategies, essentially the reMarkable goes into this direction as well if you wish to. You find a lot of infographics, diagrams, and in all of those books that I have in my library, in the majority, there are maps, graphics, numerical graphs, mind maps, diagrams, and so on. And this turned to be all into color representations and high quality prints in the recent years. You can see here an edition, facsimile edition, or reprint of the so-called Goloman history. Goloman was the son of the famous German author Thomas Mann. He was a historian and he edited this, you could actually call it like an encyclopedia of history. Now, this is in the style of the time it was written. So this is, I would say, 99% text-based, and almost no pictures. And if it contains pictures, they were all in black and white. And then there was, in the original edition, they had a couple of glossy color pages attached to the main text and the main matte paper, cheaper paper for the print, at the end of the book. Compare this with a more modern and more recent book on world history, where you have essentially on every page diagrams, maps, graphics, infographics, and so on, which is, according to psychological experience, easier for people to digest and to understand. Now, this is why my books, which are mainly non-fiction books, are heavily reliant on graphical, I would not say photos, but at least graphical information, and most of them in color, especially if you have modern version of that as a PDF. Now, those of you arguing in the comment sections that, well, as an e-reader, this is not necessary. This device is highly overkill, because first of all, go smaller. An e-reader doesn't need to be 11.8 inch. I disagree, because this is only true if we are talking about books which are text only based. And then the color doesn't matter and the size doesn't matter. And actually then I would go for my Onyx Books Parma, which is pocketable and which I can simply carry with me. Now I understand where you're coming from, because I think this is mainly from people who are focusing on fiction books. If you read novels, short stories, plays, even scripts for films, movies, etc., all of that is purely text. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you a little bit how this looks like when you really change the settings of this contrast filter in the reMarkable Paper Pro, and what effect this has on the pictures, on the photos in this case, and on pure text. And I will really go into a high level of magnification. I can show you here my setup, which I have used to record these sessions with the camera, and a dedicated macro lens very close to the surface of the reMarkable. And you can see how the text is going to change. You can see the refresh in detail, and you can also see what effect these contrast filter has on text and images respectively. Let's get into it. So here you have a few close-up images with the macro lens, and I will now show you a couple of things really in the highest possible magnification that I can produce. So you see here essentially a page of a PDF. Again, it's photography, simply because this is a combination of high quality pictures and photos plus black text for the reading part. And here you see an edge of photos plus the text underneath. And I'm now going to change the settings of the contrast filter. Please note that in this case the contrast filter is set to off. When I set the contrast filter to on, this is what happens. If you set the contrast filter to on, this is going to increase the readability of the text and slightly decreases the quality of the images, because from my perspective they then appear a little bit too dark. But let's do this now. What you see here again, contrast filter off. I'm now going to set the contrast filter to on. And you see the refresh, and from my perspective now the text looks a little bit richer, darker. Here you see some and should be better readable of a photo of a bird, as you can see. I don't know if you can see that. Yes, okay. And now also here, let's change the filter to see what effect this has on photos. Here the contrast filter is off in order to make the pictures look better. If I set the contrast filter to on, then you see actually that the dark areas are a little bit darker and the light areas are, well, there is the white even blown out in the middle of the face. If I disable the contrast filter again, you see that for the photo you have a much more balanced view. Now let's continue. This is a cloud scenery, and now let's go down and go to some settings. You see here a extreme high close-up, and you see here also quite a small text. Let's see how this text looks like. And this text, as we are now in the disabled mode, so the contrast filter is off. When I enable the contrast filter, this means darker areas should become darker, lighter should become lighter, and this should make the text more readable from my perspective. You can judge yourself if that is really the case. You see the dithering of the colors, and to be honest, that is fairly similar to how it would look like on a printed book as well. Don't assume that a printed book has no dithering, because the 4-color printing technique, with the only exception that key is normally in printing business used for black color and not for white, is essentially a little bit similar. There is a specific rastering a technique applied, and then you essentially apply 4 different colors, the 3 main color variants plus key, which is black, on the paper. And this is how color prints are generally created. So a close-up of this magnification of a printed page would be fairly similar than this one. But again, we are now in the, let me check where we are. Maybe you could even see it. We are in the contrast mode disabled. Again, let's now, you would see it. Actually, you see here now the contrast mode on off, and you could even see my finger here coming from the right. I'm now going to enable the contrast mode, and then let's go back to the photo, which is now extremely dark, as you can see. Yeah, but let's look here at the text again, and again tell me your impressions, how you feel about this change, and if it makes the text for you much more readable or not. Now here you see again a page of a book, but this is now a pure text-oriented book. This is a book about generative AI and some research in this area. And you see here an extreme close-up of a few lines of the first chapter. If that makes any difference, I don't think so. And I'm also going to change the filter settings now, which are set to automatic. So I assume that for text visibility it's set to on, but let's check what happens. Nothing happens, which means yes, it was set to on. Now let's change the contrast filter to off, and now you may see how the crispness of the font slightly decreases. And since there are no photos in this book, this does absolutely not make any sense. Let's go back, that you see how optimized this setting is for reading text. And here we have now an extreme magnification of pure black text in a actually not even too big size to be read on the screen. And I may even take a photo of this page to make you aware of the size and how big it is, that you can see what level of magnification we have here. So after this in-depth comparison, coming back to the point, is this an e-reader? Is this the perfect e-reader for you? And again, I think it depends on what you're going to read. If you are reading only text-based stories, which is mainly fiction literature, then any e-reader is fine, which can display black text on a hopefully as bright as possible background in a crisp and sharp way. If you want to go for such a simple device, only read text, then a lot of options are available. The whole Kindle line, the Kobo line, the Tolinos, whatever ecosystem you want, or you go for an open device like the Onyx series. And there are smaller ones, the 7-inch, but the Parma as well, if you want to go really, really small, which is absolutely fine for fiction. If you don't read only fiction, if you have at least a mixed setup, or you have a setup that is mainly based on non-fiction, like I have, because academic documents, books, scientific research, all of that is important to me, then I think, again, that a color e-ink reader a color e-ink device is the best ebook reader for you. And the larger, the better. Now, the biggest available e-ink reader with the highest possible quality of color display and still a good, sharp and crisp text is, from my perspective and to my knowledge at the moment, again, the reMarkable Paper Pro. And this is why it is for me the best all-around device at the moment. Now, your mileage may vary, of course, depending on your needs. But this, again, hopefully gives you a little bit of insight. And I thank you again for watching this video. I hope that it was useful and you got some deeper insight in how the screen looks in a very close-up recording. Many thanks for watching. Please, again, like and subscribe, help my channel to grow, and I see you in the next one.